As I have mentioned a few times in the past, I have a bunch of ideas written down in a book for all of the challenges I've ever thought of. Thing is, getting through said challenges has taken a lot longer than I expected because I keep getting great suggestions from you guys in the comments, such as completing New Vegas as Leatherface or Elvis. Today is one of those days where I get round to another challenge from the community, that being from Hellgast Major, as I am to find out, can you beat Fallout New Vegas with the Alphabet Challenge? The idea that Hellgast Major came up with is that I have to use weapons that go in order of the alphabet, so for example, I start with something like an anti-material rifle for A, and after I get a kill with it, I must move on to a weapon beginning with the letter B, and so on and so forth until I get to Z, and at which point I will move back to A, and the cycle will repeat. I was considering that maybe I should only be allowed to use each weapon a single time, but then I figured that would result in a playthrough where after I killed 26 people, I would just be a pacifist for the rest of the run, and that didn't seem very interesting. One thing of note that is really worth mentioning is that there isn't a single weapon in all of New Vegas that begins with the letter J. If we were to use console commands, then I could have access to Joshua's pistol whip in 45, but I already have a full video of me playing through the game with it. So, to compensate, I spoke to Hellgast Major and he suggested throwing spears as they could technically be seen as javelins. You may disagree with that, but counter argument, he made up the idea for this run, so technically the rules are whatever he wants them to be. Now, with all that out of the way, let's begin. Unlike usual, I actually did some research before this run, as I figured it would be necessary if I needed to track down 20 plus weapons. Speaking of carrying a truckload of weapons, strength was a no-brainer for my primary special stat, mainly for equip load, but also because a large majority of my weapons could very well be melee based. I then maxed out luck and intelligence for more crits and skill points respectively. For my tag skills, I went with guns, melee weapons, and explosives. Doc Mitchell gives you items that he claims you have found on you at the end of the creation process that depend on your tag skills, so picking combat based skills such as these gets the best results. Finally for traits, I take Build to Destroy for the extra crit chance, and Hoarder for once again more carry weight. Thanks to the tag skills and the 3 numbers in the back of my credit card, I already have weapons for the letters B, J, M, S, and W. Remember, the throwing spears are javelins for this run, so they count as J. Inside the house, I'm also able to grab a laser pistol along with some knives to have access to letters L and K. You could make the argument that the 9mm pistol would count towards N, but I made a really weird rule to not use any weapons that start with a number. Anyway, leaving the doc's house and I head straight over to Chet where I buy some dynamite, a police baton, a shovel, and a tire iron. I then go ask Sunny for her assistance murdering the bottle folk, and in turn she gives me a free varmint rifle. You may be wondering why I bought the shovel if I already have a straight razor, and the answer is simple. The shovel is for digging graves this time around, not putting people in them. It comes in particularly handy right off the bat as I can head north from Goodsprings and dig up Chance's knife for a very powerful sea weapon. That's about everything for me in Goodsprings, and as of yet I still don't have a weapon starting with A, so as of yet I am not allowed to get my hands dirty. Off the top of my head I could only think of 2 weapons that would actually work, and they were the previously mentioned anti-material rifle and the Abilene Kid BB gun. Well, as of right now I am incredibly poor, so it was off to Field Shack to get the deadliest children's toy in the Mojave. It's quite the trip to the house just outside of Nellis, so I do my best to make the journey worthwhile as I search the old abandoned shack near the Yangtze Memorial to get myself a machete. For a brief moment, I thought I'd find a really good G weapon in the form of the golf club inside the shack, but alas, I forgot that it's technically called a 9-iron and sadly not viable for the run. It's not all bad though, as the luck begins to really work its magic as inside the graves at the memorial I am fortunate enough to get a plasma pistol and rifle. These certainly would have been nice to find in that grave robber run, but I digress. After this small haul, nothing much else caught my attention while I was on my way to my destination. That was except for the ash piles and corpses that were kind enough to give me some combat armor for my troubles. Once I claimed the Abilene, I could technically start the run proper, but I felt it made the most sense to get as much of the alphabet filled out now rather than later, because I didn't want to find myself in a firefight without the appropriate ABCs to deal with the situation. My first port of call was Mick and Ralph's, as Mick has some pretty solid options for letters E and N. The one major problem with this is that they were both incredibly expensive, and I have less than 2,000 caps as is. You all know where this is going, 30 plus minutes of blackjack across the Atomic Wrangler, Gamora, Ultralux and the Tops, until I'm satisfied with the weight of my wallet, or could get kicked to the curb, whatever comes first. During my gambling career, I also paid a visit to the Silver Rush where I stole a tri-beam laser rifle, a flamer and a recharger rifle to help round out the inventory. When I made it back to Freeside with just under 40k, I bought the 2 aforementioned melee weapons, along with a hunting rifle for good measure. Now that I had weapons from A to F as well as H, but no G, I figured it wouldn't hurt to pay the boomers a visit. Well, it did hurt, but that's besides the point. Inside Pearl's house, I can grab a grenade launcher, as well as some more combat armor, because why not? I'm not really bothered about helping them out this time around, so it's back to Freeside yet again, where I purchased an incinerator. I know I technically could have got one from the convict leader at the Bison Steve Hotel, but this way was simply a lot faster with my newfound funds. Now, having access to the majority of the alphabet, it was time to track down the last few letters, and it goes without saying that these were by far the most annoying to get a hold of. First up, you may have noticed I didn't take Wild Wasteland as a trade at the beginning, and it was entirely intentional. The only weapon that begins with the letter Y in the entire game is the YCS-186, which can only be obtained from the leader of a group of mercenaries who will be replaced by aliens and the Alien Blaster should you take Wild Wasteland. The mercenaries were quite tough, or at least their leader was with his unique Gauss rifle. Not helping matters, of course, was the fact that I had to kill one of them with a BB gun. I know the Abilene can be extremely powerful with the right build, but my build ain't it, chief. After a few, shall we say, lackluster attempts, I was able to sneak up on them and get a critical stealth hit with the Abilene, which was more than enough to take out one of the lightly armoured mercenaries. Next was the broad machete, and rather than charge the whole group like a fool, I instead bided my time and waited for them behind this rock. I thought I was a dead man when their leader approached me first, but this turned out to be a blessing in disguise as I was able to use VATS to close the gap between us quite quickly. After the VATS strikes were done, I just unleashed a flurry of slashes till he went down. I then grabbed the weapon along with a suit of reinforced combat armor for a nice defense bonus. I could have technically just ran at this stage as I had what I came for, but I was feeling bloodthirsty, so I whipped out Chance's knife and dispatched mercenary number 3. The last two were of no match for me now, the first losing his legs after cuddling some dynamite, and the second who did not survive the insect back scratch. With the mercenaries stripped of all of their valuables and weapon Y in my possession, it was off to Jacobstown to collect the melee weapon for O. Going directly west of Jacobstown from here, rather than follow the path outside of Freeside, was the smart move, as now I don't have to contend with any cazadores on the way. In fact, the only enemy I encountered was a giant mantis, who I very quickly turned into some grilled mantis. The weapon I want, oh baby, is in a nearby cave that is infested with night stalkers. I could just walk in, grab it, and leave without much hassle, but I figured the extra experience for completing the quest for Dr. Henry couldn't hurt. I was very wrong about the Night Stalkers, it seems. Even with my reinforced combat armor, they still managed to inflict a sizable amount of damage on me. I still wanted that XP though, so I used weapons G through N to clear as many of them out as I possibly could before I reached the Dead Nightkin, where I grabbed my next weapon, oh baby. Almost as soon as I grabbed the weapon, I needed to use it, as I was attacked by yet another Night Stalker. On the bright side, killing it got me enough experience to hit level 6. Levels up until now have all been focused on lockpicking, as the weapon for Q, which I will be getting right after my business in Jacobstown, is locked behind a very hard lock or a very hard terminal. I chose to take lockpicking instead of science, as I thought it would be more beneficial in the long run. I technically only need to get my skill to 90, as Sunny Smiles and Good Springs will give you a lockpicking book for a temporary plus 10 to the skill if you ask her about stuff to do around the town. Back to what's important, I finished up the quest, and due to my lack of people skills, this time around I chose to fight King. I am on to P now, so I can use my plasma rifle on him, and thanks to 2 back-to-back criticals, can dispatch him before he inflicts any real damage. As I have no weapon for Q just yet, I am unable to take out his backup, but thanks to some quick thinking, I just walked right outside and let the local population take care of the problem for me, finishing the quest. Now to grab Q. I head back to the Repcon headquarters, which I passed by on my first trip to Vegas, walk inside, grab a lot of ammo, unlock the very hard door, and can claim my prize, the Q35 Matter Modulator. It's a unique plasma rifle, meaning P and Q will be using 2 variants of the plasma rifle right after one another in the rotation. Fortunately, the Q35 is a different colour, so it should be simple enough to spot the difference. I now had every weapon bar X and Z, and as of right now, X is the most out of the way to obtain, so off I went to find the Zap Glove. According to the wiki, merchants such as Mick and Blake have chances to sell the glove, but after trying for 30 minutes and making 0 progress, I decided on another way to obtain it. Using the Brotherhood holotape outside of Nellis to gain entry to the bunker, I agree to get rid of Dobson, which I do rather fast by turning him into a big green puddle. This means it's on to weapon R, the Recharger Rifle. I know this gun can be decent with the right build, but I am not that build, so this time around, using it will not be so pleasant. No time to sulk about that though, as I must use it right now to kill Senior Knight Lorenzo after failing to pickpocket the Zap Glove from his inventory. The weapon was slow to kill, but overall the encounter wasn't the absolute worst. Mainly because I was able to back myself up into a corner where he seemingly wasn't able to harm me. From here I could finish the job and procure the Zap Glove, leaving only weapon X left to be obtained. As my next weapon in the cycle was a straight razor, I wasn't exactly planning to stick around and find out what would happen to me in the Brotherhood base, especially considering I wouldn't be able to take all of them down before I got to X. In a small oversight though, on my way out I remembered that I didn't have 100 in lockpicking and would need the key to escape. This meant I would need to kill one of the soldiers, so the smartest move was to take out Paladin Ramos. For whatever reason, Ramos only has 40 hit points, which is less than half of all the other Paladins, making him by far the most viable option to kill. After doing so and grabbing the key, I wasn't exactly home free as a few scribes decided to break protocol and follow me outside. I managed to down one of them with my tri-beam laser rifle, and it was on to you, which was going to have to be unarmed. My default fists didn't seem like the best choice against people with laser weapons, so I ran far enough outside of the valley that I could fast travel back to Goodsprings, where Joe Cobb was still waiting for me, and I beat him into an early grave. As the varmint rifle was next on the chopping block, I agreed to help with the Ghost Town gunfight quest, as Powder Ganger seemed about the only enemy weak enough for me to not want to tear my hair out while using it. I ran through my next two weapons almost immediately before they even spotted me with 2 stealth kills, as the varmint rifle and weathered 10mm pistol do more than enough damage to deal with the low level Powder Gangers. With no weapon still for X, I waited around for the citizens to have their fill of murder, and after getting my reward, started to jog in the general direction of Nipton. There is only one weapon in the entire game that starts with the letter X, and it's the X2 antenna. The problem is it can only be obtained from the Old World Blues DLC, and as you cannot leave that DLC until it's over, I guess the runtime for this recording just got extended by an hour. I have yet to play a Metal Gear game for the channel, but the intro of Old World Blues sure gives me the right vibes due to how long the cutscenes and following dialogues are. Thankfully, you get to carry all of your equipment to the Big MT, so I don't need to worry about collecting replacement weapons. That said, the sonic emitter is a good alternative to the straight razor should the need arise. As the weapon I need is in fact one of the 3 main objectives for the DLC right now, I have its location marked on the map and can head there as soon as I gain control. I choose to just walk along the pipes heading south, as ignoring the occasional landmines, it is by far the safest route there. The game is not too pleased with me skipping over all of its combat encounters, and as such, it crashed for the first time during this run. Well, I am a stubborn fellow, so I hop right back in and take the pipes again, this time not for convenience, but to prove a point. Reaching the satellite, and I effortlessly avoid the protectrons inside to reach the top of the building, and can finally complete my entire alphabet of death. The X2 gets put to work right away as I use it as an effective beating weapon to get rid of a nearby Robo-Scorpion. Next up was the stealth facility to the west, and on the way I used the YCS for the very first time ever in my life to take down a lobotomite. Needless to say, it is quite powerful. As this is the stealth facility, I do not kill anything while going through the test. On my way out, however, I equipped the Zap Glove to neutralize one of the many Robo-Scorpions this DLC loves to throw at you every 5 seconds. This means it's the end of the first cycle, and therefore it's back to A, and as you can probably imagine, I am not best pleased at the fact I now have to use the Abalone Kid BB gun to slowly whittle down a Scorpion if I want to use something better. It takes a bit, mainly due to me not landing many crits, but eventually it goes down, and I can switch to the Broad Machete yet again. The power of money pays off once more as the Broad Machete claims yet another life for the run. This leads to the X8 student records retrieval, and a part of the run I was really not looking forward to, mainly due to the amount of cyberdogs you can be forced to deal with. I tried running through and just grabbing the records, but seeing how more spawn every time you grab one of the 3 records, I was very quickly torn limb from limb. Next attempt, and it's killing time as I go through and slowly take out everything in my way, from Hallmonders to Robodogs and a few lobotomites who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. By the time I grabbed the last record, I was back to K, which ended up working out quite well as I needed something strong to take out Gabe the Cyberdog. By this stage, I have also taken the Super Slam perk, as I'm known to do. So thanks to a few lucky knockdowns, Gabe is out of the picture, and I can retrieve the plot-related MacGuffin. It's now into the final main mission of the DLC, and time to make my way for Mobius' lab. I am very much aware that I'm about to come face to face with the giant Robo-Scorpion, and as such, I will need a pretty decent weapon if I want to take it down. So, on the way, I made sure to use both my L&M weapons on some random enemies so that I may fight the Scorpion with the Nuka Breaker. First attempt. Second attempt, and I don't get atomized right off the bat, and I'm able to close the gap and start throwing down. Judging by its size, it obviously has a lot of health, but I also packed a lot of stim packs, so it was really a war of attrition to see who came out on top. The fact you're currently watching this should probably let you all know that I did indeed stand victorious over the Cyber Arachnid. Meeting up with Morbius, and I decided to go off the think tank. Meeting up with Mobius, and I decided to go off the think tank. You see, Mobius is voiced by Cam Clark, who just so happens to be the voice of Liquid Snake, so I can't not help him with his problems, right? O, P, Q, R, and S were the letters that brought about the quick end of the think tank. The only real trouble was when I had to use the recharger rifle to dismantle Dr. Dalla, as it took close to 2 minutes to drain her of all her health. With that, I could return to the wasteland, and just for fun and seeing how I was in Nipton, I wiped out Volpes and his crew. In probably the luckiest shot I've ever captured during a recording, I somehow managed to take out 2 Legion soldiers with a single shot from the tri-beam laser rifle. I don't believe this invalidates the run, as it's kind of like the equivalent of multiple people dying to a single explosion. Next again was unarmed, but rather than fight a Legion soldier, I made the smart play and beat down one of the powder gangers on the cross to count for the kill instead. The varmint rifle shockingly makes short work of the mongrel, and then the weathered 10mm pistol, X2 antenna, and the YCS clear up the last of the stragglers. All that left was me and Volpe's, and he never even had a chance to think about what was happening, as 2 strikes from the Zap Glove ended the fight in my favour. I also made another valuable upgrade, as now I could replace my recharger rifle with his Ripper. The Strip is obviously my next port of call, but before that I wanted to deal with the Great Khans in Boulder City. Initially, the idea was to get Benny's lighter and then convince Swang to let me carry my weapons in the tops. But to jump ahead a little bit, things did not end up working out that way. So really what this is just me slaughtering some Khans for the sake of slaughtering some Khans. Also, if you're wondering why I'm starting here with Chance's knife and not the legendary BB gun, well, I went to Freeside beforehand to buy some stim packs, and on the way had to contend with 2 Freeside thugs. The Khans, by the way, never stood a chance. Chance's knife dealt with the first in a matter of moments, and I followed that up with some dynamite to thin out their numbers. As for Jessup, well, he embraced the Mantis Fist, for a lack of a better way to put it, and then the final Khan was roasted alive inside his leathers for good measure. It seems I wasn't very careful with the dynamite, as I must have injured the 2 privates I was sent to rescue, as on my way out, I was attacked by both of them. Fortunately, they were grouped nicely together, so 1 shot from the grenade launcher was more than enough to wrap things up. Now, it was time for me to head to the tops, and as mentioned before, things got pretty violent, pretty fast. People were hunted, incinerated, and 1 man even had his head javelined into the wall. It was a very pretty sight to behold. After finishing off the last of the greeters with a katana, I got Benny's attention by lasering holes in his Gucci suit before reducing him to a pile on the floor. Only 2 of his guards attempted to fight me, and they could not stand up to the machete and Yucca Breaker combo. Grabbing the chip and rather than head straight to house, I figured I would side with Yes Man for a change, so I was off to the Ultralux to continue the massacre. At the risk of repeating myself, to cut a long story short, I entered the building, sung the alphabet song 1.5 times, and in the chaos, heckin' saved Gunderson's son. I also found a suitable replacement for the dynamite in the form of the dress cane. And yes, I went on a short spree in Gomorrah as well, but doing so was like breathing to me at this point, so it's nothing too fancy. I was back now to L again, and it seemed a fitting time to take out House. I was smart enough not to upgrade the Securitrons beforehand, so we had to watch in horror as their pitiful bullets just bounced right off of me. This was also the quickest that I've ever killed House, to the point where it was honestly quite jarring. Although, that could also be down to the fact the entire pod disintegrated along with him. However, before getting rid of Robert, I made sure to trade in every snow globe I had, and with an abundance of caps, fast travelled back to the gun runners, and finally replaced that BB gun with the anti-material rifle. At this stage, my arsenal was about as good as it was going to get for the time being, so it was off to Red Rock Canyon to demonstrate to the Khans the importance of armour. With that, I had technically met all of the factions, and I thought to hell with it, it's time to assault the dam. The Dress Cane, Embrace, and Flamer worked very well on the approaching Khans and Legion, and it was time for yet another upgrade as I was able to replace the Sonic Emitter and Straight Razor with a Super Sledge due to the fact almost every Legion soldier carries one during this segment. The fighting continues inside the offices, and I'm honestly surprised by how effective the throwing spear / javelin is on the NCR heavies. Maybe I should get to the throwing spear run sooner rather than later. Anyway, by the time I left the offices and blew up the generators, I realised that if I didn't play my cards right, I may end up having to fight the Legate with my bare hands. Clearly, that being an impossibility due to my current build, I instead just ran straight for the Legate's camp. I did use the Nuka Breaker to beat the living daylights out of the very first Praetorian in the camp, 1, because I wanted to, and 2, because his armour can be used to disguise myself past a few soldiers before getting Delanius. I am still going to kill them all, don't misunderstand that, but I just wanted to have the ability to use my favourite weapon to take out the Legate. The disguise does not work on the Legate, but remember, if you swing or fire your weapon continuously, NPCs cannot engage you in dialogue, and because this holds true for the Legate, I can use this to get up behind him and take him out in a few lucky swings. This also means since he was taken out so fast he can't call for reinforcements, so the only Legion left to deal with are those that spawn in the camp as you enter the area. The plasma rifle and Q-35 can easily gooify the 2 Praetorians that wait outside of Lannius' tent, and then I use the Ripper to deal with the one waiting by the inner gate. The aforementioned Super Sledge takes out one of the 2 final guards, and then the last survivor of the Legion gets turned into ash at the hands of the Tri-Beam laser rifle. All that was left was Oliver, and although the Securitrons do most of the work, I still didn't like the idea of going into the final encounter without a decent weapon, so I used my unarmed fists followed by the Varmint rifle and 10mm pistol on the 3 nearby Brahmin, allowing me to use the X2 on the General. He obviously does not survive the battle, and after tossing the General into Yes Man's monitor, I finished the game, proving yes, you can indeed beat Fallout New Vegas with the Alphabet Challenge. That ended up being a lot longer than I thought. Goes without saying, the longest part of the run was just collecting all of the weapons. It's always fun to get to some of your guys' suggestions, so I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you have any ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Regardless of coming in this challenge video, if you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like. Interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe as I try one of these videos out every week. My name is Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see you all in the next video.